Let me take you on a journey. Imagine standing alone on a mountain at sunrise. The sky is still dark, but it is opening to the light. In that moment, you feel the earth beneath your feet and the vast sky above you. You breathe and know you are enough. This is the feeling of being whole within yourself. It is the strength that does not need validation and does not seek permission. It is the strength that already lives in you. Many people believe a woman becomes complete when someone else steps into her life. This is an illusion. Completion is not a gift from outside. It is a realization that grows from within. When a woman understands her own value, she is no longer waiting for someone to tell her who she is. She stops comparing herself. She stops seeking applause. She starts walking her own path with quiet power. True strength comes from presence. It is the power to be here, to feel your own heartbeat, to trust your own choices. When a woman begins to trust herself, she becomes like water. She adapts but never loses her essence. She can flow around obstacles, but she can also carve her way through stone over time. She learns to use patience and discipline rather than fear and doubt. A woman who knows she is complete is not cold or distant. She can still love deeply. She can still open her heart. But her love is free because it is not born of need. She chooses connection because she wants to give, not because she wants to fill an emptiness. This kind of love is stronger. It does not break when life changes. It does not disappear when others walk away. This journey begins with silence. In silence, you meet yourself. You see the stories you were told about your worth. You see the chains you accepted without questioning. And in that silence, you start to breathe differently. You start to release. You start to rebuild. Little by little, you create a foundation of self-respect and self-knowledge that cannot be taken away. In practice, this means showing up for yourself every day. It means cultivating your body, your mind, your spirit. It means caring for your health, learning new skills, and setting clear boundaries. It means treating yourself with the same kindness and patience you would give to someone you deeply respect. This is the training ground where your independence is forged. Self-worth is discovered within, not granted by someone else. When a woman truly understands this, she begins to see herself with new eyes. From a young age, many are taught to look outside for approval, for a compliment, for someone to tell them they are beautiful or good enough. Yet the truth is that no voice outside can define the depth of a woman's value. It is only when she turns inward and begins to listen to her own heart that she realizes she is already complete. This shift is powerful because it changes her from a seeker of validation to a creator of her own self-belief. It removes the power from the hands of others and places it where it belongs, within her own soul. This discovery of self-worth is like peeling away layers of old stories. A woman begins to question the beliefs passed down to her. She looks at the messages she received about needing someone to make her whole, and she notices how fragile those messages were. Then she starts replacing them with truths she has experienced herself. She learns she can make decisions. She learns she can stand alone. She learns she can succeed and fail and still be worthy. Each of these realizations becomes a brick in the foundation of her inner strength. This foundation grows solid and steady. It becomes something no one else can take away because it does not depend on someone's attention, affection, or approval. When a woman discovers her self-worth from within, she starts moving differently in the world. Her posture changes. Her eyes hold more certainty. She speaks with a tone that is firm but calm. She stops apologizing for taking up space. She stops diminishing herself to make others comfortable. She learns to honor her voice and her choices, even if they are not popular. This does not make her arrogant or unkind. It makes her authentic. Authenticity is magnetic. It draws people who respect her rather than people who wish to control her. It also teaches others how to treat her, because she shows by her example what she is willing to accept and what she is not. This inner discovery also changes the way she relates to love. She begins to see relationships as an addition to her life, rather than a remedy for an emptiness. Love becomes a place of sharing instead of a place of rescue. This shift creates freedom. She can enter or leave relationships without fear because her identity does not depend on them. She knows her value before anyone else names it. She can offer kindness and loyalty, but she does not sacrifice her own dignity to keep someone beside her. This is the power of finding worth within. It frees her to love without chains and to live without permission. It is also important to see how this journey touches every area of life. When a woman values herself, she invests in her education, her health, and her dreams. She no longer postpones her goals waiting for someone to appear. She builds her career, cultivates her talents, explores her interests, and takes responsibility for her finances. This makes her stronger and more secure. She becomes capable of standing on her own, which only increases her ability to contribute to others from a place of abundance instead of lack. This is not just empowerment, it is self-mastery. Sometimes the path to self-worth is not easy. Old patterns return. Doubts whisper. Society's voices still try to convince her she is incomplete alone. Yet she learns to return to herself. Through reflection, meditation, journaling, or quiet walks, she reconnects to that inner core. She reminds herself of the progress she has made and the strength she has built. Over time, this becomes second nature. She trusts herself more than she trusts fleeting opinions. She knows her life belongs to her. The moment a woman realizes self-worth is discovered within, not granted by someone else, she begins to rise. She understands she is the author of her own story. She carries herself with calm power, unshaken by external approval or rejection. She becomes the center of her own circle, balanced and whole. And from this center she can reach out, create love, and live fully. This is the quiet strength that allows her to stand in any room and know she is already enough. Independence builds confidence, an unshakable identity. When a woman begins to rely on herself and recognize her own abilities, something powerful happens within her. She no longer measures her worth by how much someone else approves of her or how much she is needed. Instead, she measures it by how deeply she understands herself and how boldly she stands for what matters to her. Independence is not about rejecting others. It is about standing strong in who you are, making choices with clarity, and creating a life built on your own values. This inner independence builds a quiet confidence that is not easily shaken by circumstances or opinions. True independence starts with small steps. It begins when a woman makes decisions for herself without fear of judgment. It grows as she learns to manage her own time, her finances, and her goals. It strengthens as she builds skills and experiences that remind her of her own capacity. Each time she takes responsibility for her choices, she strengthens her inner foundation. This foundation becomes a fortress of self-respect. It does not mean she stops loving or connecting. It simply means she no longer looks to others to define her worth. She knows she can stand on her own, and that knowledge allows her to move through life with more freedom. Confidence born of independence is very different from confidence built on external factors. External confidence can crumble when the source disappears, but inner confidence stays even when life changes. A woman who is independent knows her achievements, her values, and her vision. She trusts herself to handle difficulties, to navigate challenges, and to find solutions. This self-trust is what makes her identity unshakable. She does not need to prove herself to anyone because she lives according to her own standards. Independence also teaches resilience. A woman who has learned to stand on her own knows how to recover when things go wrong. She does not collapse under the weight of disappointment. She sees setbacks as lessons and keeps moving forward. This resilience fuels her confidence because she knows that no matter what happens, she has the strength and skills to rebuild. In this way, independence creates a cycle of growth. Each challenge overcome makes her stronger, and each step forward deepens her sense of who she is. As a woman becomes more independent, she learns to protect her boundaries. She recognizes her time and energy as valuable. She surrounds herself with people who respect her space and her choices. This does not make her isolated, it makes her intentional. She builds relationships based on mutual respect rather than need. She gives freely without losing herself. She can walk away from situations that do not honor her values, because she is not afraid of standing alone. This is one of the clearest signs of an unshakable identity. Independence also allows her to explore her dreams without limitation. She does not wait for someone else to support her vision or tell her it is possible. She starts building it herself, step by step. She invests in her education, travels to new places, learns new skills, and tries new things. Each action expands her confidence and reminds her that she is capable of creating a life aligned with her deepest values. This freedom to explore strengthens her sense of purpose and fuels her passion for living fully. This journey toward independence is deeply connected to self-respect. When a woman respects herself enough to stand on her own, she becomes an example to others. Younger women see her and understand that they too can build their own foundation. She inspires change by living it. Her life becomes a message that wholeness comes from within, not from being completed by someone else. She may still welcome partnership, friendship, or love, but these are choices she makes from abundance rather than need. Ultimately, independence builds a woman into someone who moves through the world with steady grace. Her confidence is rooted, not loud. Her identity is strong, not rigid. She knows who she is, what she stands for, and what she deserves. She does not fear walking her path alone, because she knows she is never truly alone. She carries her own strength within her. And with every step she takes, she becomes a living example of how independence creates confidence and an identity that cannot be shaken. True love is a choice, not a necessity for completion. When a woman understands this truth, she begins to experience relationships from a place of freedom rather than fear. She no longer seeks someone to fill an emptiness inside her. Instead, she recognizes that she is already whole, and her love becomes an expression of abundance rather than a plea for validation. This shift changes everything. It transforms how she approaches connection, how she gives of herself, and how she receives from others. She realizes that love is not about being rescued or saved. It is about walking alongside another soul, each whole on their own, yet willing to share the journey. This understanding allows a woman to redefine love on her own terms. It frees her from the illusion that without a partner, she is somehow incomplete. She begins to see that the deepest bond she will ever have is the one she cultivates with herself. As she strengthens this bond, she no longer fears loneliness. She can enjoy her own company, pursue her own dreams, and celebrate her own milestones without waiting for someone else to acknowledge her. In this state of independence, love ceases to be a necessity for her sense of identity. It becomes an optional, beautiful addition to an already fulfilling life. When love is a choice, it is purer and more authentic. It is not born out of desperation or the need to fix something missing. It is a conscious decision to open one's heart and share life's joys and challenges. This kind of love is resilient because it is built on respect and mutual growth rather than dependency. It creates space rather than confinement. It nurtures both individuals because it does not demand the sacrifice of one's essence to maintain the bond. In this way, a woman's capacity for love actually deepens when she no longer needs it to define her. Choosing love from wholeness also teaches discernment. A woman who knows she is complete does not settle for less than she deserves. She does not cling to relationships that drain her or compromise her values just to avoid being alone. She approaches partnerships with clarity, asking whether this connection adds value to her life, rather than whether it can fill a void. She can walk away from situations that do not honor her worth because she knows her worth exists regardless of who stands beside her. This courage is one of the most powerful gifts of realizing that love is a choice, not a requirement. This perspective changes the quality of her interactions. She becomes more present, more generous, and more balanced in relationships because she is not weighed down by fear or expectation. She does not need constant reassurance to feel secure. She can give without losing herself. She can receive without feeling indebted. This creates a healthier dynamic where love flows naturally and both people can grow. By removing the burden of completion from love, she restores it to its original essence: connection, care, and mutual uplift. Living this way also strengthens her sense of responsibility for her own happiness. She no longer expects someone else to provide her fulfillment or purpose. She takes charge of her well-being, cultivates her own passions, and maintains her own friendships. This independence does not diminish her ability to love. It enhances it because she approaches relationships as a whole person with her own energy and vitality. This makes her presence more radiant and her love more impactful. Through this inner shift, she also becomes a model of healthy love for others. She shows her children, friends, and community that partnership can be chosen for joy rather than out of fear. She demonstrates that being single is not a sign of failure, but an opportunity for growth. She teaches by example that self-love and self-respect form the foundation for every connection we create. This wisdom slowly reshapes how others view love as well, encouraging a culture where people come together out of wholeness rather than lack. The understanding that true love is a choice, not a necessity for completion, liberates a woman. It allows her to embrace relationships as experiences of growth and joy instead of lifelines. It allows her to remain true to herself even when love enters her life. It allows her to say yes or no without fear. And ultimately it leads her to the most powerful place of all: the realization that she was always whole, always enough, and always capable of choosing love from a place of strength rather than need. Emotional and financial freedom empower authentic living. When a woman frees herself emotionally, she begins to break the invisible chains that tie her self-worth to the opinions and expectations of others. She learns to understand her own feelings, to hold space for her emotions without being ruled by them, and to respond to life from clarity instead of fear. Emotional freedom does not mean becoming cold or detached. It means having the ability to feel deeply without losing herself. It allows her to choose her reactions and protect her peace. This internal stability becomes the bedrock on which she builds everything else. With emotional freedom, a woman stops allowing external circumstances to dictate her happiness. She no longer waits for someone's approval to feel good about herself. She recognizes her triggers and learns to calm her inner storms. This makes her more resilient in relationships, in work, and in personal challenges. She stops overgiving to win love or sacrificing her boundaries to be accepted. She starts speaking her truth and standing firm in her values. As she does this, her self-respect grows, and so does her confidence. Emotional freedom is the first step to authentic living because it lets her act from her true self rather than from fear or habit. Alongside emotional freedom, financial freedom becomes a powerful force. When a woman gains control over her own money, she gains control over her choices. Financial independence allows her to make decisions based on her values, not on her dependence. She can choose where to live, what to study, what kind of work to do, and whether or not to stay in a relationship without being trapped by financial need. This is not simply about earning money. It is about learning to manage it wisely, to save, to invest, and to plan for the future. Each of these skills strengthens her sense of security and self-reliance. Financial freedom is also deeply connected to dignity. A woman who can provide for herself walks differently in the world. She does not have to compromise her principles to survive. She does not have to stay in environments that diminish her spirit. She can leave a toxic job, a harmful relationship, or a limiting situation because she knows she has the means to support herself. This independence is not just practical, it is emotional liberation. It removes the constant undercurrent of fear that can keep someone from fully expressing who they are. Both emotional and financial freedom work together to create a life of authenticity. Emotional freedom clears the internal space to know herself, while financial freedom creates the external space to live according to that knowledge. Together, they allow a woman to design her life intentionally. She can take risks, pursue her dreams, and stand firm in her boundaries because she has the inner and outer resources to support herself. She becomes the author of her own life story, rather than a supporting character in someone else's. When a woman achieves these freedoms, her relationships also transform. She no longer chooses partners, friends, or mentors out of fear or dependence. She chooses them because they enrich her life and align with her values. This allows her to form healthier, more balanced connections where respect flows both ways. Her independence does not push love away. It allows love to thrive in a more honest environment. She gives and receives without losing her sense of self. Emotional and financial freedom also inspire others. Women who embody this strength show their children, friends, and communities that it is possible to create a life of dignity and self-reliance. They break cycles of dependence and teach new patterns of empowerment. They become role models not only for success, but for integrity, showing that authentic living is not a distant dream, but a real path available to anyone who commits to it. Ultimately, these freedoms create a sense of inner peace. A woman no longer feels she must trade her authenticity for security. She no longer silences her voice or hides her dreams. She no longer doubts her ability to stand alone if needed. Instead, she lives in alignment with her values and dreams, fully present and fully alive. And in this state of freedom, she discovers that authenticity is not only possible, but natural when she has the courage to claim both her emotional and financial power. Personal growth creates inner strength and lasting fulfillment. When a woman commits to her own growth, she begins to uncover layers of herself she may not have known existed. She moves beyond the surface of who she was told to be and starts exploring who she truly is. This journey of growth is not a single event, but a continuous process of learning, reflecting, and evolving. Each experience, whether joyful or painful, becomes a teacher. With every lesson she integrates, she becomes more grounded and resilient. This inner strength does not appear overnight. It develops slowly through consistency, self-awareness, and the courage to face both light and shadow within herself. Personal growth gives a woman the tools to meet life with confidence. When she learns new skills, reads widely, seeks mentors, or practices self-discipline, she adds to the storehouse of her inner resources. She begins to trust herself more deeply because she knows she has worked for her growth. She sees challenges not as threats but as opportunities to expand. This shift in perspective is powerful because it transforms how she experiences setbacks. Instead of feeling defeated, she becomes curious. Instead of shrinking back, she leans in and learns. This habit of growth builds a kind of mental and emotional muscle that allows her to stand steady when others would crumble. Another important aspect of personal growth is self-reflection. Growth is not just about adding skills or achievements. It is about understanding your own mind, values, and motivations. A woman who takes time to reflect begins to see patterns that no longer serve her. She identifies limiting beliefs, old wounds, or habits that drain her energy. By shining a light on these areas, she takes her power back. She is no longer driven by unconscious patterns, but by conscious choice. This awareness is a form of liberation, allowing her to live more intentionally and authentically. As a woman grows, she also becomes more compassionate with herself. She stops expecting perfection and starts valuing progress. She learns to forgive her past mistakes and sees them as part of her evolution. This self-compassion is not weakness. It is strength because it allows her to recover from setbacks without shame. With compassion, she builds a supportive inner environment that fuels even more growth. Her inner voice changes from criticism to guidance, from doubt to encouragement. This supportive inner dialogue becomes a steady anchor during difficult times. Personal growth also strengthens her independence. The more she invests in her own development, the less she needs external validation to feel worthy. She discovers that she can create fulfillment within herself, rather than waiting for someone else to provide it. She takes ownership of her happiness, her health, and her future. This ownership is empowering because it frees her from the passive waiting that keeps many people stuck. She begins to make plans, set goals, and take action because she knows she is capable of shaping her life. As she grows, her relationships also shift. She becomes more intentional about who she allows into her inner circle. She seeks friendships and partnerships that support her growth rather than stunt it. She communicates her boundaries more clearly and expects mutual respect. Because she is growing, she inspires others to grow as well. Her presence becomes a catalyst for positive change in her community, her family, and her workplace. This ripple effect amplifies her sense of purpose and fulfillment. Through personal growth, a woman also develops a deeper sense of gratitude. She begins to appreciate her journey rather than constantly comparing herself to others. She sees the value in small victories and the beauty in everyday moments. This gratitude strengthens her resilience and keeps her grounded, even when she achieves great success. It also keeps her connected to others in a humble and authentic way, preventing her from losing sight of what truly matters. Ultimately, personal growth creates a life that feels meaningful and whole. It gives a woman the inner strength to face challenges, the wisdom to make aligned choices, and the fulfillment of knowing she is becoming her truest self. This is a lifelong path, and each step forward makes her stronger, freer, and more at peace with who she is. And as she continues to grow, she realizes that her strength and fulfillment were never dependent on anyone else, but were always within her reach. Boundaries protect dignity and encourage self-respect. When a woman understands this, she begins to see boundaries not as walls, but as expressions of self-love. They are not about shutting people out, but about creating space where her values, energy, and identity can thrive. Boundaries become a living declaration of what she will accept and what she will not, of how she wants to be treated, and how she will treat herself. This awareness changes her life because it teaches her to value her own time, emotions, and presence. By setting clear limits, she builds an environment in which her growth, confidence, and independence can flourish. In the beginning, creating boundaries can feel uncomfortable. Many women are taught to be accommodating, agreeable, and self-sacrificing. Saying no may feel like a rejection or a betrayal. Yet over time she learns that saying no to what diminishes her is saying yes to her own well-being. She understands that she cannot fully step into her strength or nurture her dreams if she allows constant intrusion or disrespect. Boundaries give her permission to prioritize herself without guilt. They help her preserve her energy so she can invest it where it matters most. Boundaries also teach others how to engage with her. When a woman clearly communicates her limits, she sets a standard. People who respect her will honor it. People who do not will either adjust or leave. This process may be challenging, but it is necessary for building authentic connections. It filters out relationships based on control or dependency and makes space for relationships built on mutual respect. This in turn strengthens her self-respect because she sees how her boundaries create a circle of dignity around her life. With healthy boundaries, a woman learns to protect her mental and emotional health. She does not let other people's opinions define her mood or identity. She learns to pause before reacting, to check in with herself before agreeing, and to separate her responsibilities from those of others. This emotional clarity allows her to respond with compassion without absorbing every burden around her. It also gives her the freedom to express her needs openly and without shame. This is how boundaries transform not only her relationships with others, but her relationship with herself. Boundaries are also essential for pursuing personal goals. Without them, distractions and demands can derail her focus. By setting clear lines between her priorities and external pressures, she creates time for self-care, learning, and creative work. This is not selfishness, it is self-discipline. It shows that she values her growth enough to protect it. Over time, this consistency builds confidence and a deeper trust in herself. She sees that she can rely on her own decisions to safeguard her path. Establishing boundaries also nurtures emotional independence. A woman who knows her limits is less likely to lose herself in relationships. She does not define her worth by how much she sacrifices for others. She understands that caring deeply does not mean erasing her own needs. This balance allows her to love more freely because she is not giving from exhaustion or resentment, but from a place of stability and choice. It also allows her to walk away from toxic situations without fear, knowing she is strong enough to stand alone if needed. As she maintains her boundaries, she becomes an example for others. Friends, colleagues, and family members notice how she carries herself. They see her dignity, her clarity, and her calm strength. She teaches by example that respect begins within, and that boundaries are not a weapon, but a shield. This quiet influence can inspire other women to reclaim their own space and honor their own worth. In this way, boundaries ripple outward, creating healthier communities and relationships. Ultimately, boundaries are acts of self-respect that protect her dignity and encourage her independence. They are the invisible structure supporting her confidence, her peace, and her authentic life. They make room for her voice, her dreams, and her values to shine without compromise. And as she strengthens them, she realizes that her power does not come from controlling others, but from honoring herself fully and without apology. Wholeness comes from self-acceptance, not external validation. When a woman truly embraces this truth, she begins to shift her entire perspective on life. She no longer measures her worth by the reactions, compliments, or approval of others. She starts to see that her value was never something to be earned. It was always something to be recognized. This realization is liberating because it frees her from the endless chase of trying to meet shifting standards. Instead of performing to gain love, she begins living to express who she really is. This becomes the foundation of her wholeness and a lasting source of peace. Self-acceptance starts with acknowledging every part of oneself, even the parts that were once rejected or hidden. It is about looking in the mirror and seeing the whole person, the flaws, the strengths, the dreams, and the scars, and saying, "I am enough as I am." This does not mean she stops growing or striving to improve. It means she stops believing she must be perfect to be worthy. This subtle but powerful shift changes the way she treats herself and the way she allows others to treat her. It opens the door to authentic self-respect. As a woman practices self-acceptance, she naturally begins to release comparison. She stops judging herself against the curated images of others. She recognizes that everyone's journey is unique and that her path is hers alone. This gives her freedom from jealousy and the anxiety of competition. It allows her to focus her energy on her own growth rather than chasing someone else's idea of success. In doing so, she discovers that her individuality is not something to hide but something to celebrate. Self-acceptance also softens her inner dialogue. Many women grow up with a harsh inner critic that constantly questions their worth. Through acceptance, that voice gradually transforms into one of support. Instead of saying, "I am not good enough," she begins saying, "I am learning, I am growing, I am whole." This self-compassion becomes a source of quiet strength, helping her recover more quickly from setbacks and mistakes. Rather than being paralyzed by fear of failure, she becomes willing to take risks because she knows her worth does not depend on the outcome. With self-acceptance, a woman becomes less dependent on external validation to feel loved. Compliments and recognition may still feel good, but they are no longer the foundation of her identity. She can appreciate praise without becoming attached to it, and she can handle criticism without collapsing. This balanced perspective gives her a stable inner core that is not easily shaken by life's ups and downs. From this core, she can make decisions that truly align with her values rather than trying to please others. This wholeness also transforms her relationships. Because she no longer seeks validation, she can offer love without desperation and receive love without suspicion. She is not drawn to people who diminish her, because she no longer sees herself as someone who needs to earn worth through sacrifice. She sets healthier boundaries, communicates more clearly, and chooses connections that support her growth. This authenticity attracts people who resonate with her true self rather than a mask she wears for approval. Self-acceptance also gives her courage. When she stops hiding her imperfections, she becomes braver in sharing her voice, her ideas, and her talents with the world. She takes opportunities she might have avoided before, not because she believes she is flawless, but because she knows she is worthy regardless of the outcome. This courage to show up as herself is one of the strongest indicators of wholeness. It signals a shift from living in fear to living in truth. As she embodies this truth, she becomes a light for others. Her self-acceptance challenges the false beliefs that say women must look, act, or live a certain way to be worthy. She shows by her presence that wholeness is not about perfection, but about embracing reality with grace. This quiet confidence inspires others to examine their own lives and perhaps to release the pressure of external validation. Ultimately, wholeness is the natural state that emerges when self-acceptance takes root. It is the steady calm of knowing you are already enough. It is the ability to grow without self-rejection and to love without fear. And as a woman walks this path, she realizes that her strength, her freedom, and her peace have been within her all along, waiting for her to claim them. And so, as we reach the end of this journey together, remember the truth that has been at the heart of every word spoken. A woman does not need anyone to complete her, because she is already whole. The power of self-worth, independence, authentic love, emotional and financial freedom, personal growth, healthy boundaries, and self-acceptance all point toward the same destination: a life lived from strength, dignity, and inner peace. You are the architect of your own life, and every step you take toward your own wholeness lights the path for others to follow. Believe in your own voice, trust your own steps, and keep rising above any limitation. May your journey be filled with courage, grace, and endless possibilities. Good luck on your path, and thank you for allowing these words to be a part of your story today.